Cole, we chatted about this in the group chat, and it got shut down pretty quickly. But the Sark to NFL rumors are interesting. They survive a second week in a row in overtime against Mississippi State. A pretty thrilling comeback that all of the country hated, minus Texas fans, because it just felt like the little engine that could with Mississippi State. And too many things went wrong. The punt return felt like it was the dagger. But Sark to the NFL, thoughts here?
I mean, I'll just be completely honest. I wasn't upset about Mississippi State finding a way to lose that game, especially with who was standing on the sidelines watching him at Mosley. I'm not gonna name names up here.
I'll name names.
But number one media personality in college football who can't talk about college football definitely got his comeuppance against Texas. That is not a good team. Here's what we'll talk about when it comes to the status of the Sark situation. I've heard for years Sark has wanted to make a jump back to the NFL at some point. Now, if Texas had won a national title up to this level, I think that there would definitely be a lot more voices going in that direction simply because of with recruiting and with the standpoint of Texas being such a dominant job and taking over your livelihood and him having a young son and him now, looking up to the next big thing. And he was able to finally bring Texas back to the national dominant level. Yeah, I could see it happening. There's also the standpoint of, well, who's his agent and who is making all the phone calls and all the rounds at this point to make sure that every single one of their clients is getting paid. It's Jimmy Sexton. So Jimmy Sexton's doing his job to say, hey, listen, we would love nothing more than to see another $1 million added to his contract. We're not going to do that. You didn't make the college football playoff. Okay, well, now I'm going to go to the NFL because if they're going to pay that price instead. Okay, well, now we can't afford to lose Sark, so we're going to go ahead and pay for him. So it could just be agent talk of putting yourself in a position where you're making sure that your client gets paid the highest dollar amount possible, especially in a cycle where you're going to see Lane get paid a lot of money and you're going to see someone else from the ACC get paid a lot of money. And there's going to be more jobs that are open on up, which means that Sark's money is going to go down and he wants to be one of the highest paid head coaches. So that could be the case. The other point is that Sark is one of these people who's very much in love with the idea of him being the play caller. It's something that he has talked about on momentous occasions of when IK was hired, I was hired because of I was calling plays at Alabama, and that was a selling point for you. And that was something that you thought that I was really, really good at, and I don't want to give up the play calling rights. And there's a lot of people in Austin who are saying at this point, change is necessary to come if you want to stay in a position of relevancy to where we are going to get to the highest level. There's a lot of people out there that believe Sark needs to bring in somebody else to call plays. And if they tell him in the offseason, listen, we're going to give you an extra $1.5 million to go bring in whoever you want as an offense play caller. And he views that as a slap in the face, goes up to an NFL team and says, let me be the play caller. Let me have a say on who the quarterback is. Let me go out and bring in the right personnel members. And I get to bring in the free agents that I like. I'll leave Texas. I'll go right now. I think it's more so the former. I think it's more so he is trying to get a big payday, knowing that there are going to be major jobs available. But I will say there will come a day that Texas does lose Steve Sarkisian to the NFL. I just don't think it's in 2025.
Tom, would anybody in the NFL take him right now?
Yeah, I mean, teams would take him, but you also have to understand that you're maybe number one in pole position in terms of college coaches to jump to the National Football League. So what's available? Do you really want to be the head coach of the Tennessee Titans? Or do you want to kind of do what Jim Harbaugh did and you just wait? You just bide your time and you find yourself a good situation like Harbaugh did with the LA Chargers and look at the success they're having this season. Fit, timing, it all matters. Steve Sarkeesian has gone through a lot in his personal life, obviously, to get to the point that he is now, and he's in a good situation. I think he could stick around at Texas for a while, and always having the dangling car keys of the NFL scares athletic directors, often garners more money, longer contract extensions. I also think this Arch Manning situation, he maybe wants to see the end of this and he wants to finish it out. You never know what the conversations have been like with the Manning family and Steve Sarkisian over the years. But you would imagine Arch Manning would want to play for a guy like Sarkisian. Sarkisian would want a guy who's as committed as Arch Manning, even though, yes, it's been an up and down year. Arch is dealing with injuries a lot this season. We've seen so much of that this past weekend. So I think Steve Sarkisian, whether it's an offensive coordinator job or a head coaching job, he's going to garner interest. He's going to be worthwhile. And the thing I always think about now in this modern era of college football with NIL and the transfer portal, and I know there's a lot more changes coming, is it just less of a headache to be a coordinator in the NFL than a head coach in major college football? The answer kind of feels like yes, in that you just coach ball and you just work with what you're given for the most part. You don't have to do all this oversight. You don't have to worry about culture and answering these questions every single week. For the most part, you're going to talk to the media, but it's just going to be a different experience. And you don't have to deal with all of the crap that comes with being the CEO of a blue blood program. But I don't know. To me, it feels like Steve Sarkisian's in a good position at Texas. I don't think they're rushing him out the door. So this was good timing by Jimmy Sexton or the NFL or whoever put this out there. But I think he'd be desirable by the National Football League. But all of these college coaches, like there's so many names that went on the open market that people are like, okay, would you see Brian Kelly or James Franklin or somebody go to the National Football League? It's like those are possibilities, but again, like you have to consider the price tag, you have to consider the timing, the job opportunities that are out there. I think the best job, like if Brian Dable goes and you're interested in working with Jackson Dart, there's some excitement there with the Giants and you're in the NFC East. So I don't know. It's wait and see on a lot of these. And that's the other thing we talked about James Franklin getting fired months ago. Brian Kelly just gets let go. Somehow Hugh Freeze hasn't been let go. Mike Norvell hasn't been let go. The longer you wait, the more difficult you're going to make it for your team to try and turn things around for 2026. Penn State has a lead on this as opposed to LSU. Arkansas got to jump on this in the grand scheme of things. UCLA felt like they got to jump on this. You have LSU that's now behind. You're going to have Auburn that's going to be way behind. Florida State, if they do move on from Norvell, they're going to be way behind on this search. So the longer this goes, I feel like it's higher likelihood Sarkisian just stays in Austin.
I'll get right back to the video, but first I do want to give some love to Sleeper. Make sure, as this month is winding down, that you go get your free play. You don't even have to make the play, but if they're giving something away for free, go take it. Use our code CFA for a free $20 play on the Sleeper app. That lasts through October. Don't miss out. Don't be messaging me on November 1st and saying, oh, can we still get it? No, go get it right now. Click the link in the description when this video is over, and it'll auto-populate that code for you so you get your free $20 play. We'll play this game more or less every single Wednesday live on the Power 2. You can also get $100, up to $100 match on your first deposit, but you don't have to deposit anything. Just go get the free play.
I will just push back and agree with Tom on one thing. It's Jim Harbaugh. Right situation, perfect fit. That will bring him to the NFL. He's not just taking like a job because of this job available.
Mm-hmm. Can we rank, just really quickly, this is not on the docket, but because Tom just mentioned a bunch of jobs, can you rank the current open jobs and the expected jobs? So throw Auburn and FSU in there. You can throw Kentucky, and if you want to throw South Carolina in there, that's fine too. Don't throw Notre Dame, because unless we really kind of start to think that Freeman might leave. But can you guys rank the open jobs right now? Just 1 through 6 or 7. You don't have to go through down to Colorado State.
Yeah, I mean, I can do it probably. 1 is LSU, far and away. I don't think it's even close. You can have an argument afterwards with Florida and Penn State. I personally go Florida number 2, Penn State number 3. That's just my stance on it. Number 4, I think, will be Florida State when it does. No, number 4 will be Auburn when it opens on up. It still is Auburn. Auburn has a lot of money. They are not afraid to spend. They always can go big in the transfer portal. They always have top 10 recruiting classes. So 4 is Auburn, 5 is Florida State. I think that makes it clear. After that, then it gets a little bit more conversationalist on what we're looking for. Is Wisconsin going to become available? If Wisconsin becomes available, do you think it's a better job than Arkansas? Do you think it's a better job than Oklahoma State? I would say yes. So if let's just say Wisconsin becomes available, I would put that at 6. Number 7, I would put Arkansas. It still is an SEC job. Number 8, I would put probably NC State. Number 9, I would put Oklahoma State. And if you want to make that switch and say Oklahoma State because of it is a school that did have prominence in the Big 12, you could probably put it there. Number 9, I would say would be NC State if they move off him. And then if you really want to go a little bit further, we can move some things on up. I think Baylor would actually be at number 7, and it would be the premier job available in the Big 12 because if it's a private institution in the state of Texas that's willing to spend money on NIL, that gives them a slight advantage. And then number 10, I put Kentucky.
I think you have to consider if Eli Drinkwitz moves on, Mizzou, I think, jumps into that top 5. And also, who's the other name? Manny Diaz at Duke. I wouldn't necessarily put that in the top 10, but at least you're in the ACC. That's an intriguing one there.
Jeff Brom at Louisville.
Brom at Louisville. Yeah, like again, that's hovering around 10. Matt Rule, if he bounces, then Nebraska at least has put a good amount of money in there, but how much of that team jumps in the transfer portal? I think Florida, I agree with that being number 2, because if you're inheriting DJ Lagway, that makes you intrigued with what you can do immediately in 2026. Penn State, there is an anticipated drop-off in talent in 2026 that we knew about at the back end of the 2024 season. And the recruiting crater that has already occurred for Penn State is significant. So whoever comes in, yes, you're inheriting a very healthy program, but you're going to have to do a lot of work in the next 3 years.
Yeah, I'm in agreement on this. I think in a few years, if FSU's not in the ACC, I probably would slate them ahead of Auburn. Maybe even you'd have a conversation about FSU and Penn State if they were both in the Big Ten and had the same resources. But as today stands, I think I'd have FSU fans will push back there and say that it's a better job than Auburn. But I think you might be splitting hairs there. I think, at that point, but because of the SEC ACC thing, I'd have it in the same order, at least that top 5. Georgia Tech is one that again, I think would maybe kind of sneak into some of those conversations. It would be the best ACC job to me if Key left, which I don't think he is. But Georgia Tech would leapfrog everyone else in the ACC besides Florida State, in my opinion. They'd be ahead.
Virginia Tech we didn't even mention. They're like 7 or 8.
Yeah. So interesting. That wasn't on our docket or anything today, but because we were talking about it, I wanted to grab that.